The rain in Sector the Los dripped like oil from broken sky vents. Street panels flickered, gutters overflowed, and every surface held a shine that made the district feel slick with rot. No one came to the Los 9 unless they had nothing else left. And Kairos, purple-skinned, white-haired, and half-forgotten by the systems that once promised her a future, had nothing left. She walked barefoot through the alleyways, her ceremonial wrap clinging to her body like regret. It had once marked her as an ambassador in training from the Zanari class, a translator, a cultural conduit, a bridge between species. Now it was a tattered cloth, damp and knotted badly at the side, barely holding together in the humidity. Her skin, a soft lavender that shimmered faintly in dry air, was dulled now by grime and fatigue. There was no law in the Los 9. No dropships. No scans. No patrols. Just silence and exchange, flesh, scrap, or service for food, shelter, or water. Dignity was a luxury Kairos hadn't afforded in a long time. She stood near a street vendor's heat cart, watching the bubbling vat of root stew. She didn't beg. Her spine was too proud for that. But her eyes betrayed her. They flicked from the pot to her own hands, clenched tightly at her side. The vendor noticed. His nod wasn't to her, but behind the cart, toward a narrow alley. She knew what it meant. She hesitated. Her hunger didn't. Kairos stepped behind the stall, into a corridor barely lit by a dangling blue strip. Water pooled near the bins. Her breath came short and shallow. Her fingers moved to the knot at her shoulder, trembling slightly. She jerked the cloth loose. It slid down, exposing her side. Her voice, quiet and cracked, broke the air. "All I have is my wrap," she said. "Just food. Please." No one else flinched. Two scavengers walked by, not even glancing. A woman paused, then walked on. This was normal here. Moments like this weren't punished. They were ignored. Except by one man. He heard the scrape of her foot on the wet pavement as he passed. He stopped, turned slightly, then fully. His eyes landed on her, lavender-skinned, shivering, breathless in the alley. He stepped closer. "Put it back on," he said. She jolted. Blinked. The voice was low, human, firm but not aggressive. "Put it back on," he repeated, quieter this time. She clutched the wrap against her chest. "Why?" "I have soup," he said. "No trade. Just food." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because no one else stopped." "That's not a reason. It's the only one I've got." He turned and walked away, leaving her in the alley. Leaving her with a decision. Kairos had learned the hard way, mercy was often a trap. Kindness was bait. But he hadn't touched her. Hadn't asked for anything. Just walked away. She followed. They moved silently through the ruins. Past flooded corridors, broken rails, moss-covered scaffolding. Her bare feet barely made sound, but she noticed his boots did. Heavy. Steady. She kept her distance. His shelter wasn't much, just the top floor of a collapsed data administration block. Solar panels on the side windows, a gravity-fed water filter by the wall. One cot. A table. A hot plate. Dust, but no trash. He entered first, removed his coat, and gestured for her to step in. She did. Carefully. Like the room might bite her. He filled a cracked ceramic bowl with boiling root broth. The scent was bitter, sharp. Not pleasant, but warm. He placed it on the table and slid it toward her. She didn't move. "No trade," he said again. "Just soup." "People lie." "I don't." She sat, slowly. Her fingers wrapped around the bowl like it might disappear. She didn't drink, just inhaled. Then sipped. Winced. Sipped again. By the third taste, her hands had stopped shaking. She finished and looked at him. "What do you want?" He stood, pulled a thermal sheet from a crate. "Rest. That's all." "You think I can rest?" "I don't care what you think," he said, pointing at the cot. "I care if you sleep." She walked over. Sat carefully. The wrap stuck to her skin. She didn't lie down, just stared. "You're not going to try anything?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you've already had enough taken." She didn't speak again. Just curled on the cot, holding the warmth of the soup in her stomach, the wrap around her shoulders, the weight of silence in the air. For the first time in weeks, her eyes closed without fear. When morning came, the light filtered through broken blinds in shafts of dusty gold. The room smelled faintly of boiled roots and wet concrete. Kairos stirred slowly on the cot, her senses scanning for danger before her mind fully woke. The man lay on the floor across the room, one arm folded across his chest. Still breathing. Still quiet. She sat up. The wrap now tied tightly around her, damp but whole. Her muscles ached. Her thoughts did too. He stirred without opening his eyes. "You don't sleep," he muttered. "Not well." He sat up. Pulled a shirt over his chest. Nodded toward the back. "Bathroom's that way. Water's awful, but it works." She didn't thank him. Just disappeared through the cracked door. The room beyond was little more than a cube, stained basin, broken pipe faucet, narrow mirror. She washed. Her fingers scrubbed away the city layer by layer, grime, sweat, the residue of almost selling herself. She unknotted the wrap slowly, letting it fall. Her ribs were too visible. Her hips too sharp. Her lavender skin had faded in places. When she returned, the wrap was refastened and her hair braided loosely over one shoulder. He didn't say anything. Just set another bowl on the table. She sat. "You a scavenger?" she asked finally. "Data recovery tech." "For who?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter anymore." Kairos sipped broth. "I used to be a translator," she said. "Assigned to the council on Varan Station. I spoke 5 tongues fluently." "What happened?" "The station lost funding. My clearance lapsed. No one paid for passage home. I waited for transfer orders." "How long ago?" 5 years. That landed between them like a dead weight. He didn't press. Just nodded slowly. "You don't ask many questions," she said after a pause. "Don't like being asked either." That made her blink. It wasn't a wall. It was a mirror. The rest of the morning passed quietly. He worked. She sat, watching him calibrate a storage rig. When he left for the market later, she stayed. No locks. No warning. No threats. He returned to find her still there, seated by the window, staring out into the ruinscape. "I'm Kairos," she said simply. He hesitated. "Name's Solon." He set a new bowl of broth down in front of her. She took it. No more questions. No more trades. Just soup. And maybe, just maybe, a beginning. Rain returned by nightfall, light at first, then harder, beating against the broken panel glass like a warning. But inside Solon's shelter, it was dry. Dim, quiet. The kind of quiet that came not from absence, but effort. He had built silence carefully here. And now, someone else was in it. Kairos didn't ask where to sleep that night. She simply returned to the cot. The blanket still held a trace of warmth from the day. She wrapped it around herself and lay still. Solon didn't join her. He rolled out a floor mat on the other side of the room. No words were exchanged. And yet, the space between them had changed. By morning, she was the first to stir. The scent of steam root broth filled the room again. Solon stood at the hot plate, quiet, focused. She rubbed her temples, pulling herself upright. Her skin, deep purple now in the drier air, shimmered faintly as she stretched. "I never liked root broth," she said. "Me neither," Solon replied, handing her a bowl. "But it works." She drank this one faster. Her body no longer fought it. When she finished, she didn't ask for more. She simply stood, crossed to the table, and sat beside the data rig. "You're cataloging atmospheric logs?" "I recover them. From decayed terminals. City archives mostly. Air quality data, weather drift, whatever's left." Kairos studied the screen. The code layers flickered, erratic and crude. She blinked, frowned, and pointed. "You're nesting the terminal buffer inside a relay loop. It'll crash your header stack." Solon raised an eyebrow. "You know this interface?" "I used to live in it." He motioned to the second seat. "Then sit." She did. They worked without speaking for the next hour. Kairos's fingers moved with sharp confidence. She bypassed corrupted headers, flagged broken timestamps, and rebuilt data trees like muscle memory. She wasn't relearning. She was remembering. And Solon saw it. "You weren't just a translator," he said. "I was corelingual certified. Trained to decode signal dialects from legacy systems. I maintained interface bridges on Varen Station for 3 years. And they just let you go. They stopped funding our department. No credits. No transport. We weren't terminated, we were just unassigned." She didn't sound angry. Just hollow. Solon didn't press. He recognized the sound. He'd heard it in his own voice years ago. That afternoon, when he prepped to go out on another data crawl, Kairos reached for the tool pouch. "I'll carry," she said. He looked at her. "You don't have to." "I know." She wore an old coat he had found in a salvage bin. It hung too loose on her frame, the sleeves dragging slightly past her wrists. "It's too big," she muttered. "Doesn't matter," Solon replied. "You look cold." As they stepped into the ruinscape, she noticed something strange. People watched her differently now. No more the appraising glances or dismissive looks. She wasn't merchandise anymore. She was with someone. That changed things in the Los 9. Solon moved with purpose, scanning wreckage along collapsed rail lines and submerged access routes. Kairos followed close, eyes alert. When they reached a fallen municipal block, he guided her inside, past walls scorched with old electrical burns. They descended 3 flights, into a floor still mostly intact. There, embedded in a support pillar, was a rusted data node. "It's a sensor archive," Solon said. "Logs everything from barometric drift to radiation spiking. You ever find anything useful?" "Not yet." They crouched beside it, prying open the metal hatch. The air smelled of iron and mold. Kairos traced her fingers along the wiring. "This port's fused. You'll need a new converter head." "Already bypassed it," Solon replied, handing her a cable. As she connected it, something in her posture softened. Her voice came quieter. "You know. I think this is the first time I've felt useful since Varen." "You've always been useful." "No," she corrected. "I've always been used." That stopped him. He turned, watching her. She didn't meet his gaze. "You're not being used here." "I know. Do you believe it?" She looked up. "I'm trying." They didn't speak again until they were halfway home. The city had quieted. Not peaceful, just tired. Back at the apartment, Kairos stepped into the bathroom. This time, she didn't close the door all the way. She didn't rush. She washed slowly. Deliberately. The water ran weak but steady. Her hands no longer trembled. When she stepped out, a towel wrapped around her, Solon stood by the window. He didn't turn. Just said, "You used all the hot water." Did not. He glanced over his shoulder. She stood, still dripping, hair clinging to her cheek. "Can I ask something?" she said. "Sure. If I couldn't code, if I wasn't useful, would you still let me stay?" He met her eyes. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I saw you almost give your body away for food, and stop when someone gave you the choice. That takes more strength than most people here remember how to have." She didn't answer right away. But her shoulders eased. Her hands unclenched. She sat down on the cot, this time without flinching. Later, when they lay down, her on the cot, him still on the floor, the silence between them was no longer absence. It was understanding. No questions. No pressure. Just space. In the morning, she was still there. And for the first time, Solon realized something: he didn't want to be the only one keeping this place warm. The next morning broke with a light haze over the Los 9, but the air felt denser, heavier, as if the ruins were holding their breath. Solon hunched over the data terminal, a cable patch running from the relay node he'd salvaged the night before. The screen pulsed green as it pulled corrupted files from a backup drive. Kairos sat beside him, fingers dancing over the interface, adjusting syntax lines, restoring timestamp hierarchies. Her purple skin, now glowing slightly in the filtered daylight, gave her a presence Solon had started to rely on. He didn't say it aloud, but her presence had changed everything. The shelter no longer felt like a bunker. It felt like a home. She leaned in, brow furrowed. "Wait. This log file, this isn't weather data." Solon blinked. "What is it?" She pulled the string of metadata into focus. Her jaw tensed. "It's a personnel ping. From a drone relay. Timestamped 3 weeks ago." He stiffened. "What?" It flagged a partial registry tag. A hybrid female, Zanari descent. No verified ID. Her eyes narrowed. "It's me." Solon leaned over her shoulder, scanning the terminal. "Low-level survey drone," she muttered. "Probably just an automated crawl. But it pinged my presence and logged the sector." Solon's mouth tightened. "Not military. Not patrol. Still, it got through." "It's upstream by now," she said. "Even if you scrub it, it's been copied." He moved quickly. Disconnected uplink ports. Severed mirror directories. Flushed the cache and scrubbed the local record. When he was done, he sat down, exhaling hard. "They won't act on it," he said quietly. "The Los is a dead zone. There's no bounty. No priority tags." "You don't know that." "I do," he replied, staring at the darkened terminal. "These pings hit abandoned systems no one checks unless they're looking for something else." She nodded slowly. "But what if they are?" He looked at her. "Then you can leave." Her throat tightened. "I don't want to." "Then stay." The cursor on the dark screen blinked once. She stood. Moved across the room. Sat beside him on the floor. Her fingers touched the back of his hand, just lightly. They didn't speak again that morning. 3 days passed. They didn't mention the ping. Kairos worked at the terminal during the day, cleaned wiring, repaired broken couplings, and helped calibrate air filters. She didn't speak of fear, but Solon saw it, in how she kept her boots close to the door, how she flinched when distant engines flew too low, how she watched the shadows between blinds. She wasn't planning to run. Not unless she had to. That morning, she sat cross-legged at the console, wearing one of Solon's old shirts. Sleeves rolled past her elbows, hem brushing her thighs. The ceremonial wrap hung on a hook now, unused, untouched. "You ever miss who you were?" she asked. Solon answered without looking up. "Not really. Not even a little." He paused. "Sometimes. Not who I was with. Just what I believed in." She nodded. "I miss who I thought I was going to be." He set his tool down. "You still can be." She turned. "Not on paper. Not in the system. Then we build something else." Her eyes searched his face. She opened her mouth to respond. 3 knocks at the door. Not frantic. Not soft. Just deliberate. Solon froze. Kairos stiffened immediately. She stood, her hand instinctively reaching for the terminal cord, but she didn't pull it. "Not yet." He stepped to the side cam. A woman stood there. Mid-40s. Human. No weapon. Grease on her hands. A faded maintenance badge on her jacket. He cracked the door open. "Yeah." The woman didn't smile. "Checking grid loads. Saw a power draw from this block. Thought this relay was dead." "It's not. You got solar?" Solon didn't answer right away. "Yeah. Surprised it hasn't been stolen yet. They don't know it's here." She nodded. "You got any spare?" Solon hesitated. "Maybe. There's a girl," the woman said, 3 floors down. Half Zanari. Doesn't speak standard. Sick. Probably malnourished. Been sleeping in a trash chute." Solon's jaw clenched. "I'm not running a shelter." "Didn't say you were." She turned, took 1 step, paused. "Just thought, maybe someone once said the same about her." Then she walked away. He closed the door. Locked it. Turned back. Kairos stood in the middle of the room, eyes on him. "You're already thinking about how to help her," she said. "I don't know yet." "Yes, you do." He exhaled slowly. "I barely held this place together when it was just me. Then you came. Changed everything. If I open that door again, you won't close it. Neither will you." She stepped forward. Slipped her hand into his. "I want her here. She might not want to be. Then we wait." That night, they moved. 2 thermal wraps. 3 ration packs. 1 heater coil. They descended 3 floors, passing cracked stairwells and rusted railings. They found the girl, half curled in the corner of a broken trash chute. Her skin, a sickly yellow-violet. Her eyes glassy. She didn't move. They didn't speak to her at first. Just wrapped her. Fed her broth. Let her lean against Kairos without demand. And when the girl's eyes finally focused, they didn't look at Solon. They looked at Kairos. Recognition. Like she saw something she remembered. Kairos brushed matted hair from her face. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. The girl blinked. Something flickered behind her eyes. They carried her upstairs. Solon turned off the data rig for the first time in days. The silence that followed wasn't operational, it was intentional. "She's going to stay," he said. Kairos nodded. "I know. And this place, it won't feel like ours anymore." "No," she said softly, "it'll feel like something new." He looked at her, no longer the woman who stood in an alley bartering skin for soup. She was standing straight now. Her wrap no longer transactional, but chosen. And for the first time, Solon didn't feel alone. He felt responsible. And willing. The storm didn't hit the Los 9 the next morning, but the clouds hovered like a warning. Gray and low, they scraped the jagged rooftops and kept the light cold and pale. Inside the shelter, however, something else was changing. The air no longer smelled like boiled root and caution. It smelled like life. The girl, still unnamed, slept near the wall vent wrapped in 2 thermal pads. Her skin, once jaundiced, was now a deeper, clearer violet. She still hadn't spoken, but she no longer recoiled when touched. Her eyes tracked movement. She reached for food herself. That morning, when Kairos set a bowl in front of her, the girl took it with both hands and drank without being told. Solon watched from the desk. A diagnostics panel blinked quietly behind him. He hadn't updated the Haven core logs in 3 days. For once, he didn't feel like he owed the outside anything. Kairos rinsed a cup in the basin. She wore his old shirt still, patched now at the sides with faded linen. Her ceremonial wrap, folded neatly on a shelf, hadn't moved in days. She glanced back over her shoulder. She slept through the night. Good, Solon said, standing. She'll need weeks. Same as you did, he replied. She paused. Same as you still do. He nodded. Later that morning, he brought back a second mattress. Found it in a collapsed infirmary west of the market line. Dragged it home on a rusted sled, breathing hard as he pushed it up the stairwell. When he laid it down beside the cot, Kairos blinked. You kicking me out? She teased. He smirked. Giving the kid a place that's not the floor. That's new. What? You. Planning ahead. He didn't respond. Just sat and began rewiring the solar inlet with quiet focus. That night, the girl curled onto the new mattress, her head resting on a folded towel. Before drifting off, she reached for Kairos's hand. And didn't let go until her breath softened into sleep. Kairos knelt beside her until the girl was still. Then she stood and returned to the cot. Solon was already lying down, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling. He didn't move when she climbed in beside him. Just turned his head slowly. She's going to stay, he said again. You already knew that. I don't even know her name. She'll tell us. Or she won't. He studied her. You want to raise a kid here? I want to raise a kid with you. Wherever we are. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink. But the silence between them cracked with something raw and certain. You think I'm good for that? He asked. You didn't touch me when I was starving, she whispered. That was the day I knew. She turned toward him fully now, hand resting on his chest. You gave me back the right to choose. That's what a child needs to see. The quiet that followed wasn't the kind that waits for something to break. It was peace. The next morning, Solon sent one final package to the Haven core. No coordinates. No logs. No personnel IDs. Just one line of code. This node is no longer active. The records you seek remain, but they now belong to us. He shut the terminal down. No one came knocking. That afternoon, the 3 of them stood by the balcony, watching a slow storm roll across the horizon. The girl, who had finally whispered her name as Lyra one half-asleep night, stood between them, barefoot, her small violet hand in Kairos's. No words were exchanged. There was no need. Days passed. Then a week. The Los 9 didn't change. The city still stank of rust and regret. But inside the small apartment, change was visible. Lyra began humming when she thought no one was listening. She sorted ration packets by color. She fell asleep only when Kairos brushed her hair gently with her fingers. Solon installed a second kettle. Set up an old datapad with learning games. None of this was discussed. It just happened. Like moss growing through the cracks. On the 11th day after Lyra arrived, the rain finally stopped. Kairos stood at the window, bathed in rare gold light. Her fingers pressed gently to the glass. She wore a modified sand-colored shirt now, one of Solon's, trimmed to fit her frame. No ceremonial wraps. No barter silks. Just cloth. Just comfort. Solon approached from behind. Didn't speak. Just placed his hand lightly on her waist. "She's asleep," Kairos said softly. "She asked me last night if I'd still be here when she woke up." Solon nodded. "I told her yes." She turned. Her eyes were clear now. Jaw soft. Shoulders relaxed. She wasn't a woman who'd stripped in an alley with shaking hands. That woman was gone. She'd died here, in this room. In her place stood someone who had remembered who she was allowed to be. "I've been waiting," Kairos whispered. "For what?" "For the silence to stop feeling dangerous." Solon leaned forward, touching his forehead to hers. "Does it still?" She shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "Now it feels like permission." And then, without hesitation, she kissed him. Not from hunger. Not from desperation. From choice. What followed wasn't frantic. He led her to the bed they now shared. She followed, fingers interlaced with his. They sat. Then lay. She undressed not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Her lavender skin glowed faintly in the light, unmarred by fear. His hands traced the length of her body, slow and reverent. Every movement was a question. Every response was yes. She kissed the scar on his collarbone. He buried his face in her shoulder. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about finally being allowed to remember who they were without pain. And afterward, when they lay tangled together, limbs soft, breaths aligned, Kairos whispered, "I feel like I'm mine again." Solon wrapped his arms around her. "You always were," he said. "You just needed time to remember. No more armor. No more survival. Just living." 3 months later, the solar panels hummed quietly above the rooftop, still miraculously intact. The apartment smelled like warm tea and damp fabric, not rust, not fear. Kairos sat at the desk now, not Solon. Lyra stood behind her, holding a fiber brush, carefully braiding Kairos's long white hair. "I like when you wear it down," the girl said softly. Kairos smiled. "I know. You always braid it better than I do." Solon entered with a salvaged fruit pouch, holding it up like a treasure. "Guess what I found in the old survey outpost?" Lyra grinned. "Real food?" "Half real," he said. "Still counts." There was laughter now, sometimes several times a day. Not loud, never loud, but real. The kind that bubbles up from something healed, something earned. Outside, the ruins of the Los 9 remained untouched. The world hadn't gotten better. No rescue fleets had come. No system updates restored their identities. But inside these walls, something stronger had taken root, belonging. Kairos wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't surviving anymore. She was being. Lyra didn't flinch when doors opened. She didn't sleep with her shoes on anymore. She hummed when she worked, and when Kairos read to her from an old datapad, she leaned in like the words mattered. Solon had never called himself a father. He didn't have to. One evening, as dusk painted the walls lavender and gold, Lyra curled onto her mattress, clutching a plush made from old rags. She looked up at them both. "You're not leaving, right?" Solon shook his head. "Not unless you make us." Lyra smiled. "Then I'll keep you." The screen fades to black. The silence, this time, isn't a void. It's a promise. Thanks for being here with us. If this story meant something to you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and remember, you always have the right to choose.